Do you know the greatest magic trick in human history? It's when they sold you the idea that you'd actually own a home one day. Seriously, our parents and grandparents believed in a simple deal. You work, you save up, you buy a piece of land, put a porch on it, and tell your neighbor to get off your lawn. That was the foundation of the American dream. But what do we have? They wrapped that dream in shiny neon paper and quietly swapped it out for a forever subscription service. You think you're buying a house? No, man. You're just getting permission from a bank to live inside four walls for 30 years, praying you don't get laid off next Tuesday. But even that scenario is outdated now. Because while you're clenching your teeth, counting pennies for a down payment, and denying yourself everything, an investment fund like BlackRock comes in, buys up whole neighborhoods in bulk with mountains of cash, and says, "Thanks, guys, this is all ours now. Welcome to a lifetime of rent." It turns shelter into a phone app. You don't own housing. You subscribe to the right not to sleep on the street every single month for the rest of your life. And the funniest part is that if you miss a couple of payments, those same funds throw your stuff on the curb using the cops you pay for with your own taxes. Brilliant, right? Full circle. We've turned into a nation of permanent tenants, where even replacing a light bulb or driving a nail into the wall requires approval from some soulless corporate manager who sees you as a row on a quarterly revenue report, not a human being. They call it mobility and flexibility, claiming you aren't tied down, which is just a great excuse for stripping away your ability to take root. In the end, we have a generation of adults paying for walls with their very lives, but when they die, their kids get nothing except the last month's rent receipt and a box of old wires, built on a system where you own nothing and are supposed to be endlessly grateful for being allowed to exist here. Are you really sure your college education is an investment in the future and not the most expensive scam of your life? Let's be honest, they sold you a ticket to a ship that sank before you even attended your first lecture. Since childhood, we were fed the same fairy tale. Study hard, get a degree, and all doors will open for you. And what happened? The doors did open, but it's the entrance to a coffee shop where you're stuck operating an espresso machine, smiling at people who can't even pronounce the word correctly. Education turned into a giant financial pyramid where the main product is the illusion of status. You take out a $100,000 loan when you're 18 years old. Think about that. At 18, they won't even sell you a beer because you're not considered responsible enough, but shackling you with debt for the next 20 years? Sure thing, sign right here. And for what? A piece of paper that becomes obsolete junk 4 years later. Professors who haven't seen a real job market since the 90s teach you theories from old textbooks. And when you finally step out with an empty wallet and a degree in hand, an employer looks at you and demands 5 years of work experience that you couldn't possibly have while memorizing Wikipedia entries. The nastiest part is the future that's already here. While you pay off half your paycheck for a student loan, some 19-year-old wrote a script, and artificial intelligence now does your job in 3 seconds flat, without weekends, lunch breaks, or health insurance. You studied for years to become a specialist, only to be replaced by a script that doesn't even eat. In the end, we have the most educated generation in history, drowning in astronomical debt, working jobs that require zero brain power, listening to older generations call us lazy, all while paying the price of a house for a document that's only good for wiping away tears when the bank sends another overdue payment notice. Does anyone even remember that Henry Ford fought for the 8-hour workday over a century ago so workers wouldn't drop dead on the factory floor? Congratulations, we officially blew it. The funniest part is how it happened. Nobody held a gun to our heads. They just repackaged slavery into a trendy wrapper and called it hustle culture. They brainwashed us into believing that if you aren't working 14 hours a day, if you sleep more than 5 hours, and if you don't have 3 side hustles, you're just a lazy piece of trash who doesn't want success. Now it's fashionable to brag about an eye twitch from coffee overdose and treat burnout like a personal brand. We genuinely believe we're grinding for a dream, when in reality we're just panicked hamsters on a wheel trying not to get thrown out onto the street. Corporations pulled off a genius move. They stripped themselves of all responsibility for your life, erased overtime, and invented freelancing, the gig economy, and flexible hours, telling you that you're your own boss. Right? Fantastic. That just means you're working all the time. At 9 p.m., on weekends, during movies, at your own wedding, because your phone constantly buzzes. And if you don't reply to an email within 5 minutes, another desperate guy will do it cheaper. We voluntarily turned our lives into an endless workday without boundaries, whereas people used to work to live, having time for family, hobbies, or just sitting on the porch doing nothing. Now we live purely to work, and any rare moment of rest comes with a burning sense of guilt for being unproductive. The scariest part of this system is the final result. You burn out your nerves, ruin your health, and give away your best years to hit someone else's deadlines, receiving nothing in return except chronic fatigue and a heart attack in your 40s. Knowing the corporate machine won't even blink before replacing your spot before your body even cools down. Did you know that to the system you're worth way more when you're slowly dying than when you're healthy or dead? Seriously, think about it. A healthy person doesn't buy tons of pills, get monthly scans, or pay insane bills for a few days in a hospital bed, and a dead person can't pay either. But a chronically ill, poor soul barely dragging themselves along is a dream recurring subscriber for a pharmaceutical giant. Healthcare stopped being about healing long ago. It became a survival business where your right to just breathe without pain is priced by a catalog. You can be the most law-abiding citizen, saving every penny and paying all your taxes, but slip up once or catch something worse than a cold, and your entire financial foundation shatters in a single day, where one ambulance ride costs more than your car. The nastiest part is insurance, sold to us as a safety net for disasters while you hand over cash monthly, hoping to be cared for, only to find 30 pages of fine print stating they cover everything except the exact thing that just happened to you. You lie in a bed with an IV while some guy in a suit hundreds of miles away decides if your life is worth losing a few percentage points of quarterly profit. They built an absolute psychosis where people are terrified of calling a doctor not because of pain, but because of the bill, swallowing painkillers by the handful and hoping it passes because a specialist visit costs as much as a vacation. It's a system forcing you to choose between bankruptcy and health, where regular people never win. You either lose all your savings to drag things out a bit longer, or end up broke with a ruined body, treated as raw material for capital extraction, while your pain becomes numbers on a financial report. You know that sweet fairy tale about the guy who sat in his parents' garage with $2 in his pocket and became a billionaire 5 years later? They shove it down our throats from every speaker, telling us that if he did it, you can too, if you just believe in yourself and work 20 hours a day. But in those beautiful biographies, they always accidentally forget to mention one tiny detail. The garage genius's dad had a thriving business, and his mom sat on the board of a major bank, handing him $500,000 of seed capital just to give it a shot. The self-made myth is the most toxic lie capitalism ever invented, serving only to justify the vast canyon between the rich and the poor. Because if anyone can become a millionaire from scratch, then what are you if you work 2 jobs and still can't clear your debt? According to that logic, you're just a loser who didn't try hard enough. They talk to you about risk, courage, and stepping out of your comfort zone. But it's easy to take risks and fall when you have a plush financial safety net built by your parents to catch any failure. If you're an ordinary guy from a working-class neighborhood, your only comfort zone is paying utility bills on time, where a business mistake doesn't mean valuable experience. It means your family doesn't eat tomorrow. The system forces us to compare our starting line with someone else's finish line, watching 20-year-old rich kids on social media preach about success while you eat yourself alive, thinking something is wrong with you. You'd burn out your brain trying to replicate their path, but the game was rigged from the start. In reality, most of these self-made heroes were born on third base, while genuinely convinced they hit a home run, leaving ordinary people with shattered self-esteem, wasting their lives chasing a phantom that was never meant for them. Have you noticed how cleverly corporations shifted the responsibility for destroying the planet from themselves onto us? It's a genius trick. Massive factories dump tons of chemicals into rivers every day. Oil tankers regularly puncture oceans, and multinational companies produce millions of tons of plastic trash per second. But you're the one to blame because you didn't sort that smelly plastic yogurt cup yesterday and dared to drink coffee through a plastic straw. They invented the concept of a carbon footprint and forcibly crammed guilt into our heads, so you sit in a coffee shop smearing a soggy, disgusting paper straw across your lips that disintegrates in 3 minutes, feeling like a turtle savior, while an executive from that same coffee chain flies his private jet to a 5-minute meeting in the next city, burning more fuel than your car will in a lifetime. They sell us the illusion of saving the world through consumption, telling us to buy an organic cotton eco bag for an absurd price to save nature, conveniently omitting the fact that producing a single bag wastes more water than you'll drink in 10 years. The point is for you to buy it, feel conscious, and keep ignoring the real source of the problem. It's a cynical show where we're forced to fight each other over an unrecycled battery, while real polluters get billions in subsidies from our tax dollars, offering us a water gun to put out a forest fire and expecting us to be proud of every drop. As a result, an ordinary person lives with a constant background sense of guilt for every step, ashamed to buy packaged apples while the corporate machine continues turning the planet into a landfill, simply slapping eco-friendly stickers on their products. You know the main meme of our time from various financial gurus and influencers telling you to just stop buying daily lattes, skip the avocado toast, and save those $5 at 6% interest to become a millionaire by 50? Seriously? How stupid do they think people are to push such garbage? That's not financial literacy. It's a fake and an outright insult, asking us to save on matches in a house with a burning roof. They tell you you're poor because you drink too much coffee, but forget to mention that over the last 20 years, real estate prices rose by 300%. Medical and college costs skyrocketed into space, and your real wages, adjusted for inflation, stayed stuck in the 90s. But the culprit is, obviously, a cup of tea and some avocado smashed on bread. The system gladly sells you the myth of personal responsibility because as long as you torment yourself with guilt over every cent spent and count pennies at the supermarket, you aren't asking the right questions, like why the money you earn loses value faster than you can bring it to the bank. They advise you to invest and diversify your portfolio. When, after paying rent, utilities, and buying the cheapest food, a person is left with an amount barely enough for a pair of movie tickets, they ask us to play a financial game with rules designed for people with entirely different starting capital, which is like telling a drowning person in the open ocean to just breathe more economically. In the end, we get a society of twitchy, exhausted people denying themselves the small joys of life, afraid to buy an extra cup of coffee, yet remaining on the brink of poverty, forced to believe that poverty is the result of our illiteracy rather than the direct consequence of a system rigged so you always stay in the red, no matter how many lattes you didn't finish.